There are few words to describe the horror scene on those tapes, but according to a point made in an article by the Associated Press, quote, "What's missing from the public record is direct proof rather than circumstantial evidence tying this to the regime," end quote. Former CIA operative and CNN national security analyst Bob Baer joining me now live via Skype from Colorado. So, Bob, there are some saying the evidence is still circumstantial, that there isn't enough. What more would you want?
Well, Frederica, the problem is that we can't tie this to Bashar al-Assad. We don't know if a rogue officer fired this. We don't know exactly what happened. You know, if you see a lot of people on, up on the air saying, who did this? I think this unit did. That's not enough. It's not a smoking gun. And I think everybody would like to see that smoking gun before we launch an attack.
And your sources are telling you something very interesting. Your Syrian sources are telling you about the potential consequences if indeed there were a U.S. military strike. Are these government sources? Are these citizens? And what are they saying?
These are people in the regime. They've called me up. They come across the border into Beirut and call me on Skype. And they said that on Monday, Bashar al-Assad made a statement inside the regime that if there's an attack on Syria, he will respond by hitting Israel. And I asked them, would that be with chemical weapons? They said no, it would be conventional, but they expect it to escalate from there.
And is there a feeling that evidence, the intelligence community, would be able to collect evidence that would support the notion that these chemical weapons were launched, were used by the orders of the Assad regime, by the orders of Bashar al-Assad, and not necessarily someone just within his regime?
Well, Frederica, the problem is that we can't intercept the president's communications. We can intercept individual units. The president communicates with those units by landline. You can't get into those communications, so we really won't ever know. What the administration is doing is saying, look, it's your country. If you can't control it, too bad, you're responsible. But, getting an international coalition, that's a lot harder.
Is it possible, in your view, that someone within the Assad government would have used these chemical weapons and Bashar al-Assad wouldn't know about it?
That's what I'm told by Syrians that are very close to the regime, is that they're worried about the disintegration of the Syrian army. There's a couple captains and majors, and the rest of it have gone beyond orders. Some have defected, in fact, and it's possible, they told me, that one of these officers fired the weapons without orders. And of course, if we were to strike against Bashar al-Assad now, it would do nothing to hold the army together.
So what are your concerns if a U.S. strike were to happen?
I think it's positive that Bashar al-Assad will order a strike on Israel. Israel will respond. At that point, he will use chemical weapons in retaliation, and at some point, Hezbollah will get involved in this, and we run the risk of a general war in that area. I think it's a mistake to attack.
And then the other question is, how does the U.S., how can it be a witness to this and do nothing?
That's the problem. It's a dilemma. I mean, if we don't do it, there is no answer for this. If we don't do something today, he will continue to use chemical weapons, or somebody will in his army, and this will continue to go on. And frankly, I think, if there's ever been a time for diplomacy, it's now.
Bob Baer, and you think that's still possible, diplomacy?
Bringing in Iran and Russia and Turkey all at the same table, I don't see it, but let's try it.
All right. Bob Baer, thanks so much for your insight coming to us from Colorado today.